and welcome to Our Time. To quote someone famous, all the world's a stage and all men and women merely players. They have their exits and their entrances, and one man in his time plays many parts, his acts being 7 ages. And to explain the meaning of that Shakespeare quote, meet Christopher Hurrell from the Flinders Drama Centre.
Hi, Malcolm.
Chris, I can call you Chris.
Please do. Yeah.
I didn't know this about you until we were talking, but you used to come to my school.
I did, and I didn't know it was your school until I was reading up on you recently and thought, oh, that's the connection.
Isn't that amazing?
So, yeah, but that's Adelaide, isn't it?
Well,
Small
it is,
town.
but you know, you never know how many people you influence without knowing you've influenced them.
Yeah.
And how many people have you influenced and will influence as time goes on.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful, actually, to meet somebody from the past who's now doing what you're doing and just explain what you're doing now, and that'll be a good platform to move on from.
All right. So now I'm running the Flinders Drama Centre.
This is in the university?
At Flinders University.
For people living in Melbourne,
well, of
they
course,
might think it's in Flinders Street.
That's true.
But
So
it's
Flinders University has had it's actually is the oldest drama department of any university in Australia. It was a foundation department of the university when it was founded in 1966. And they recruited a very avant-garde and striking theatre director from Melbourne, Wal Cherry, to run the department. And after a few years, he went off on sabbatical overseas and came back and said, what we need actually is a professional training unit for actors and directors within the university. And at this time, the only place you could go in Australia to be an actor was NIDA, which is not, it was not part of a university. Mm-hmm. It has a relationship with UNSW now, but it was founded as an independent conservatoire. And this was an idea of a different way of doing it, of combining the intellectual training, the conceptual training, critical thinking, research skills of a university with the skills training of an actor. And so that was his first insight, was to say, let's do it within a university rather than a separate conservatoire. And his second insight was to say, in this modern era, the 1960s, who would found a theatre school in this day and age? No one. What we need is a school, an integrated school of theatre, film, television and radio.
But we're very lucky here in South Australia because we had Don Dunstan.
Well, that's right.
Just changed everything.
And of course, if you think about the timing of this,
yes,
you'll realise that actually all these things connect. And indeed, one of the foundation alums was telling me last year that Wal and Don were good mates. And I don't know what the history was, but Don supported the Drama Centre in its early days, which is a hard thing for a state government to do because universities are in the federal system.
Well, we wouldn't, quite frankly, here in Adelaide, we wouldn't have what we've got. It's, the eastern states like to call us the city of churches, but that's very old-fashioned. Yeah. We're really the city of theatrical and festivals.
Well, that was Don's vision, certainly.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's why we have the theatres we have now.
Yeah.
Where did it begin for you then? So you came to our school doing...
Well, obviously it must have begun before then, because I had to do... The reason I came to your school was because this high school I went to didn't offer drama, and I was so obsessed already by the time I was 15, 16, that I thought, well, that's not good enough. I have to do it. And so what are the options? And somehow we found out that you could do it at night school, as it were, and that was the school in Frederick Street. And so where did it begin? Even earlier than that. I was very obsessed with musicals when I was a kid, and my greatest dream for a while was just to be the Phantom of the Opera.
Oh, okay. Not just a song and dance man, but you wanted to run around.
No, I wanted all the epic drama, the tragic drama queen in the making. But but then very quickly, my real passion was politics, and I had no intention of being an actor. I just badly wanted to do it.
But aren't all politicians actors?
Well, you're not the first to observe that.
I'm sure.
And then when I got to Adelaide University, having this thing that had been, I started studying economics on the way to doing a double degree with law, and how young could I get to be a QC? That was the sort of ball game.
Did your parents have any?
Not at all. They just go,
whatever you want.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was all my idea. But then, as soon as I got to university, I realised that this thing that I thought was just my hobby was actually my calling, and I was forlorn and desperate to be missing it and trying to do this other life instead. It was a real shock.
Well, because most people want to be on the stage and doing the thing.
Yeah.
They don't really think, oh, who's making all this happen behind the scenes?
No, but a very fortunate thing...
Did you think that at all at that time?
To be an actor?
No, did you think I actually
director?
I
young.
can be behind this, I can do things to make it happen?
Yeah. So when I was 17, my last year of high school, the State Theatre Company programmed 2 touring productions from interstate. One was from the Melbourne Theatre Company, the Angels in America, and the other was from the Sydney Theatre Company, Death and the Maiden, Ariel Dorfman's type political thriller. And the director in both cases was Neil Armfield. And somehow, at that age, when I went to those productions, it was a moment in both of them where I literally lost connection with where my feet were on the ground, like the earth moved. And somehow I knew, even at that age, that somebody had orchestrated that moment. It wasn't just the actor, it wasn't even just in the writing, something had made it come together. And I was hooked at that moment. And so I then founded a theatre company and started directing things, and then
What was the theatre company called?
Oh, Henley and Grange Youth Theatre Company.
Of course it was.
And we did the South Australian premiere of Chess, the musical, at the Scott Theatre, and bankrupted ourselves immediately.
Actually, that's another thing. I don't know how many people that go into that side of the business who actually realise how much it costs to do anything.
And I, of course, certainly didn't. But the great thing about being 18 and utterly fearless is that you just don't even bother to think to find out. You just go and do it.
Of course.
And had I known what I was getting myself into, or had I been 25 or 30, I wouldn't have done it. But
no, how wise that you did.
Yeah, I just threw myself in. And then when we went bankrupt, I just had to march into the manager of the Scott Theatre and said, I don't have this money for your bill, I need you to wipe the debt. And he did. But someone in there said to me at some point, oh, you should go to Flinders. They train directors there.
Right.
And because I think, as you were saying the other day, we're not great on the marketing, Flinders. It's not widely known.
No. Well, the thing that's not bothered me, but the thing that I've always felt is that taxes of South Australians go into the universities, obviously, but the public who are paying those taxes don't actually know who these people are that you're training, and who in fact have had, in the past, some have had fabulous careers, but more particularly it's the young actors who are coming out of these areas that we don't know where they've come from. Therefore, young actors or directors like you don't know where to go.
No, and to be honest, it's harder now than it was when I came out. You know, when I graduated, I put on a production in the Queen's Theatre, which was just a shell of Edward II, Marlowe's play, in the Adelaide Fringe, and we were reviewed in the Advertiser, and now there is no such thing as a theatre review in the Advertiser.
Isn't that a shame?
It is. It means that it's so much harder to build the steps.
Well, it is. It is. Like, where do you promote whatever it is you're doing? And it's very difficult. It's actually one of the reasons that we keep doing this program too, because there's really no other place in our state here in South Australia. Victoria may be a little different because of community television there, but community television is about talking about the community. And big business in major television now isn't that interested in that anymore.
But you'll remember that just like the Advertiser, the commercial television stations also used to support local performers. I mean, when I was a kid performing with Shane Davidson, I was on, what was it, A Touch of Elegance?
Yes, on Channel 10.
Yeah. And that was just par for the course. Yes. Now you can't buy that kind of coverage.
No, you really can't. Well, you can just hope for the best that somebody will pick you up on breakfast television, but none of it's done here in Adelaide. But now, as we're talking to Guy James a couple of weeks ago about the way television is made these days, you can be anywhere and you can be picked up.
Well, that's true.
And that's fabulous that happens, but it's sort of different when you know that they're just in a studio down the road or,
But to your point, the difference with that older model is that, there is value in people in society beyond those who love going to the theatre knowing that it's happening. And that's what that old broadcast and newspaper model gave you, was that it may not have sold the tickets, but at least it was putting it in the public imagination.
Yes,
that's right.
We would know it existed. And I think that's the hardest thing to sell a show now, is people don't know it exists.
Yeah. Because
you're paying Facebook or Instagram or any of the platforms, and are people really looking at that? Because now it's all advertising, We used to look through a newspaper and you'd have an ad, but you'd have copy there that you would read, or a photograph that you would pick up. That's what we're missing, sadly, but we need to move on in life.
Yes, and we should move on. But I was only thinking in the last month, because I've just put some productions of the university into the Fringe, and it's our first time having gone into the kind of public sphere like that in quite a while. And it put me in mind of forming my own theatre company and putting on that musical, and it reminded me that there used to be theatre listings in the advertising.
Yes.
I had to call in with the number of characters in the column, to get our little listing for,
It's amazing, isn't it? Well, there's so much more to talk about. In fact, what happens at uni now with this course. And we're going to be back in just a moment to talk about just that. Christopher Hurrell is my guest in this program. From the proper name of the Flinders Drama Centre is?
Flinders University Drama Centre.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I was double checking myself then with that.
Yeah. No, we should really include the university.
But it's not a place, is it? As such.
Well, no, that's right. There is no such institution as the Drama Centre.
Or room.
There's a building that I suppose that we call the Drama Centre.
Right.
But the idea of, as I was talking about earlier, of that Wal had of a place that was a centre of excellence for professional training, that's really a place of the mind. It's an idea that generations of academics have committed themselves to.
But I've got a bone to pick with the word drama centre.
Why?
Well, I think it should be acting, because everything is the doing word, not the noun of because what happened to comedy and what happened to all the other styles of acting.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Yes.
Well, but we
don't have to answer
But we don't just train actors, so that wouldn't do. We couldn't be the Flinders University Acting Centre.
No, but it could be called an acting course and then a director's course.
Oh, we've done that. Now we're talking about the things I've done since I arrived in the job.
Then you must have listened to what I've said on this program many times before and bamboozled a few people, saying, "What do you mean?" Of course. Anyway,
I felt strongly that sort of, I think what you're saying, that the brand needs to reflect in a really transparent way what the thing is. So my degree, although I trained as a director, is a Bachelor of Arts. Just says Bachelor of Arts on the certificate. We'd gotten to the point where you did
how long have you been painting?
Well, exactly. And then it got to the point where it was a Bachelor of Creative Arts in drama. But as you're saying, that sounds like you're studying theatre studies or something.
Yes.
So 2 years ago, we created a new suite of degrees, the Bachelor of Performance. There are 3 courses.
I like that better.
There are 3 courses in the Bachelor of Performance.
I approve.
Bachelor of Performance Acting, Bachelor of Performance Directing, Bachelor of Performance Theatre Making.
I like that. That makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
Because when you're talking to... so I've got a teenage son and daughter. No, I haven't really, but for the purpose of the exercise. And they've driven me nuts. They used to do plays at home. They used to skip around the lounge room at home. There's something there. But what do I do with them? Where do I take them? How do I... and where do they find out what it is they actually want to do?
Yeah. But now you're talking about a generational change, because when I was a student and when you were a student, the idea of telling, or of student age, but the idea of telling father that I'm going to go off and be an actor was a pretty challenging conversation to have. Whereas if you're going to say, I'm studying drama, sounds a bit academic, you might end up as a drama teacher. Now, the opposite is true. Now parents want to hear that their child is going to study acting.
Because it's a profession that people don't realise the skill and training that you need to go through.
Yeah, well, that's true.
I've certainly talked to a lot of parents about this with their kids, because they recognise they've got something, they don't understand it because they haven't got it.
Yeah.
And that's really difficult for parents, to be... You're there to advise your child. No, I know nothing about all this show business rubbish. What's all that about?
And look, the concern that, what will the backup be?
Yes.
You know, that's a legitimate concern.
yes.
But it brings me back to what I said before, that by doing this training within a university environment, you can provide the foundational, creative, intellectual training that can take people in all sorts of ways. You know, Douglas Gautier at the Festival Centre, the chief arts executive in the state, is an acting graduate of Flinders Drama Centre.
I didn't know that.
There you go.
See, what a good point to make. And do you teach them to be baristas in their spare time?
I think we can rely on the world to teach them that.
No, but that's the thing. It's a hard thing because you're dealing all the time with your emotions as an actor initially, but a director is the same. You've got to create this thing. And like you said, that point that went ding in your head, there's somebody behind this. This is, again, what people don't see.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a process of discovery. You just edge towards. For me, it was just I had an instinct to go in that direction, and I didn't even know why.
So to answer the question, what do I need to do? What do I need to tell my son and daughter they need to do to be able to get into these courses?
So now, if they're coming, straight from school, they'll be combing through the SATAC guide. Of course, it's combing through online nowadays, and they'll find that the only course that's called anything like acting or directing in South Australia is these courses. And so then... Well,
you've got the Drama Centre, Adelaide Uni's got...
they do musical theatre.
The Conservatorium Theatre and Music, musical theatre.
But it is, the Drama Centre is the only place to do a university-based, a full professional training as an actor in full-time in South Australia. And same thing with the directing course is the only one of its kind in the country.
That's pretty amazing.
There is only one undergraduate degree for directors.
So how do I get there, though? What do I have to do?
So you apply like anything else. You apply in your SATAC form, but then it starts to change. So like any drama school, you've got to run the gauntlet of the audition. We've introduced a new pathway for that in the last year. Glenda Linscott, who of Prisoner fame, but was the head of acting at WAPA for 8 years until recently, now based in South Australia, an enormous national talent. So she runs an annual audition boot camp for us so that students can come and get a handle on what they've got to do when the time comes and prepare. Because the audition process is rigorous. A successful auditionee will come to see us after having submitted a written application, an essay and their CV. They'll come and see us 3 times, an audition, and they'll be with us all day on that day, then a callback most of the day on that day, and then a one-on-one interview.
If they're lucky enough to get the callback.
If they get the callback, if they get the interview.
Do you find, we all watch the movies or we go to see shows and it looks so easy.
Yeah.
Do you think people are sort of attracted the bee to the honey sort of thing, thinking, I've just got to swan in?
Not only that, but it is, those kind of stories of movie stars. I know Michael Caine is one of these, who sat kind of transfixed in the darkened cinema and saw not just a body of work, but a leap into a different lifestyle, the glamour of Hollywood, that sort of thing. What I notice in the auditions is that even kids who are obviously terrified to be even standing up and doing it have still put themselves through the agony of coming to the audition. So it's not that people just think that it might be easier than it is. It's that they long for the translation into a projected life and world that they imagine it to be. And the journey through the audition process, and for a lot of students for most students through the training itself, is the journey from and I say this to the students, you arrive thinking you know what acting is. We all arrive thinking we know what it is. All of us are wrong, but we're all wrong in a different way. And the journey is stepping towards discovering what it actually is.
It's acting.
Yeah, well, it's...
Not schmacting.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, indeed.
That's really hard for people to grasp, the fact that you've just got to clean out everything and become.
Yeah. It's, and I used to say that as a young kind of firebrand, I used to get sort of frustrated by people just having a go at acting, and I would say, would you hire a lawyer who was just having a go? No, you would hire a professionally trained lawyer. Why should acting be any different? Yeah. But of course it is different, because there is, acting does, at a certain level, does provide a social good the way in which it builds confidence. I mean, I started in youth theatre, and that's what it was all about, drawing 100 kids together and giving them a translating experience in their own confidence and creativity. It wasn't anything to do with them being on a journey towards professional performing. It was about them transforming themselves. So it does serve that purpose, but that's ultimately not what we're about at Flinders.
It's really growing up to become, sort of, to me, that's sort of what it is, if that makes simple sense. Can you name drop a few people that people having a look at this program could identify with, like the Noni Hazelhursts?
Yes, well, the thing about Noni is that she was in the very first cohort. So last year we celebrated our 50th anniversary with a big event at the Adelaide Festival Centre. And that event was a film screening and an in-conversation event of Scott Hicks, the film director, who again didn't go to Flinders to study film. He came to the Drama Centre, and he was a younger student in that year when Noni was graduating as part of the first cohort. And the other speaker on that occasion was a guest artist, Jim Sharman, the famed theatre director, because Scott had taken the training he'd received at Flinders and pursued and started to pick up a camera and become interested in film, and had found himself making the official documentary of Jim's Adelaide Festival in 1982, which began a whole process of innovation at that time, from that radical festival to then the Lighthouse Company at State Theatre Company. But Scott, as a young kind of rookie filmmaker, was able to understand what Jim was doing, and that speaks to the training. So you've got those early generations of very illustrious practitioners, not just actors but directors as well. Then in more recent years, talking about the film world, Xavier Samuel went off and had a big career in Hollywood. A name that people don't immediately think of, but I encourage them to look up, is Victoria Hill, who was one of the founders of Brink Productions in Adelaide. Brink's still going. But then after Brink's initial ensemble model was retired, Vic went to Hollywood, and she is still acting in Hollywood, but also producing at the highest level with Oscar-winning films.
Everyone starts somewhere, but it's really good if you can start with all that information in your head, isn't it?
Yeah, sure.
Speaking of information in your head, we've got some information we need to pass on to you, and we will be back in a minute. Christopher Hurrell has been my guest in this episode of Our Time. We're talking about all things acting.
Indeed.
Acting.
My whole life.
Acting, not drama acting. Again, a young person wanting to pursue this, there is the opportunity to actually get into the industry without going to a university. But what you don't end up with is the knowledge of the pieces that are available, find the type of, for example, doing Shakespeare. If you really love the word. I was just recently in the UK and I went to the Globe Theatre and I learnt two things I never actually knew the background for, because I never went to university.
Right.
And I discovered that rehearsal means to rehear the dialogue, and that audience is because it was about hearing the audio of what was being said.
That's right.
Which the guy walking through the theatre, an out-of-work actor, was explaining. Yeah. And I thought, it doesn't matter how long you live, there's always something new to learn. Yeah. But in my day, there wasn't really the opportunity to go anywhere to learn. So you actually had to have some raw ability to start with, and you had to learn from the people who were around you or working with you to pick the things up. But it's a longer process.
Well, but the rewards are, so great, because let's suppose you're a very talented young person who can get away with doing an ad or a piece in television without ever having been trained.
Yes,
so you can do that. But the range of what you can do
Sorry, I'm setting myself up here just in case anybody thinks
the range of what you can do from your natural talent is going to be so much.
Exactly.
What we can do is expand that.
Yeah.
To what you were talking about the audience in Elizabethan theatre, that whole idea that the Elizabethans went to hear a play instead of seeing a play. That speaks to the fact that theatre itself and theatre acting is primarily a verbal art form. Now that comes as a bolt from the blue to all my students when I tell them that, because their understanding of what acting is that it's an image-based art form.
Is that because of media and film and because we think of close-ups and things?
Right.
And you're acting in a close-up, well, you're not acting in a close-up, you're feeling in a close-up sort of thing. And all of the people working on the floor here with us are all studying to be filmmakers.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting. Have you guys learnt anything out of this conversation? There's a thumb up, two thumbs. Cameron one was a bit latent with his thumb, but... No, it's interesting because now we know these things exist. We know we've got a firm future in this as a real industry. Yeah. And what we're just talking about before, what do you do for a real job thing, people don't have to ask that anymore.
No, that's right. Yeah.
Chris, it's been great talking to you. Thank you so much. We've been trying to do this for over a year, so I'm so pleased we finally made it. Thank you so much, and great success for you in the future in this position, which is really fabulous. So everyone, till next time on Our Time, keep yourself nice. Bye.